even know how to start from this recording. I'm starting this recording because I'm going to be talking about the death of DMX and drug addiction, life experiences, when I'm going to get pretty in depth. The reason why I decided to make this video was because I wanted to tell my story, my life experience with alcohol and drug addiction. I was watching a show yesterday where one of the guys was talking about why there's so much negativity about drugs and addiction, and the rappers, how they glorify doing drugs, and while he doesn't ever hear anybody talk about anything positive about drug addiction. And I responded to him by saying, because nobody wants to hear about it. Everybody creates content today, videos, film, whatever, and they're looking for popularity. And it's not popular to talk about positive things, good things. Those are the things that don't get the most views. Talk about somebody cheating on their wife, or somebody getting shot, murdered, or something negative, and you'll see it gets a lot of views. Talk about something positive, and nobody wants to hear that. But I decided to make this video because I want to help one person. I want to help myself. And in the process of doing that, if one other person benefited from my story, then alhamdulillah, that means all praise due to Allah. I am unscripted. I don't know where to start or where to end, but I'm gonna start with the truth. Most people that I have talked to in my lifetime, they become addicted to drugs or alcohol because they're unhappy with themselves, and they use drugs and alcohol as a means of escape. What I can say about my experience, it started when I was a child. From birth, I started with problems. My mother was about 52 years old when she had me, and my mother didn't believe in abortions. So my mother, even though the doctors told her not to have me, she said, I don't care if I die. I'm not having an abortion when it's in God's hands. when I was born because my mother womb was weak and she was an older woman. I was born with a lot of hernias, and I was actually about 6. I had 3 or 4 in my stomach, and I had 2 in my testicles. Back then, medical wasn't what it was today. And I remember being in the hospital most of my childhood from the age of birth until around 3 or 4 years old, constantly in the hospital. My mother was dealing with my brother who was addicted to heroin. Excuse me. What happened is since the cancer surgery, sometimes when I talk, my food tries to come out my stomach. And if I don't stop, it'll eventually come up and it starts shooting out my nose. It's not a pretty sight. But anyway, back to what I'm saying about what happened to me as a child. Um, I remember that I was so scared of the doctors because the only thing I remember is these people with long white coats. And then my mother would take me to the hospital, and it had these dingy looking lights. And they would say, come on, little boy. And I'd be kicking and screaming. And the reason why is I knew they were going to hurt me because on the first surgery, I was in so much pain. I was unable to sit up. I was unable to walk. And even I wasn't able to talk. I remember that trauma because I remember them telling me, oh, we're going to give you ice cream. And I was so scared. I said, I don't care about the ice cream. I didn't want them to operate on me. And I remember just being able to shake my head. My memory is I didn't want no ice cream. Um, I wanted to go home. But anyway, the traumatizing thing that a lot of my family don't even know, because it's the first time I'm talking about that, was my mother was alcoholic. My father worked all the time, but he never came to see me. And my mother came once in a blue moon. So most of that time, I was by myself. I was a child. I was terrified. I was in pain. Um, I remember the last time I was in the hospital for that. It was my 5th birthday. I can remember as if it was yesterday. I guess because of the trauma. I remember my mother told me she called the hospital and I got on the phone and she said, I'm coming to see you today, baby. I know it's your birthday. And I was so happy that somebody was coming to see me. And I remember my mother brought me this cheap toy. I remember it like yesterday. He had a yellow head and he had those clown uh, things like they come to a triangle and at the end is a bell like the clowns used to wear it. and that was around his neck. And he was in a car, and he had wire and wheels, and that was it. And I couldn't believe how cheap this toy was. I was a child and I knew it was cheap. And my mother left me that car and she left. And I remember tearing that car up. I ripped the head off. I took the wheels off. I hated it. And the reason why I hated it was because I, I, I hated it because I hated it because I felt like I thought all the suffering I did that I deserved more than that. And I remember it made me very bitter. Yeah. And my mother didn't even stay 5 minutes with me. And it was the first time I can remember becoming very angry as a child. All I wanted was for somebody to love me when I felt like nobody loved me. And yeah, I can remember that's when I became very angry and bitter. And after that moment, I was not very nice. I didn't want to be nice anymore. And I became very inverted. And I didn't like to talk. Um, my mother rushed me to get into school. And she didn't want me to be behind. So she got me into preschool that summer. My birthday came in December, so my mother didn't want me to be. Hold on. My mother didn't want me to be behind other kids in class, so she pushed me. And I said, Ma, I don't know how to do anything. I don't know how to read. I don't know nothing. I've been in the hospital all this time. And my mother was like, I don't care, you're going to school. So I did pre-kindergarten, and then it allowed me to go into kindergarten early, before my birthday. And I remember I always struggled with learning, and I didn't know why. And it made me feel stupid. Um, all the other kids knew the answers, and I was very quiet. I didn't talk much, and my mother was very poor. Um, the gambling and the drinking didn't help any. And I remember my mother always wanted me to be more, but I couldn't be more. I didn't have the interaction with other children growing up. I didn't know how to be with other kids. And when I came home, my brother and sister, they were mean to me. I guess because they didn't know me. And they slept in the room together. My mother and father slept together. And I slept in the living room by myself. So I had a whole bunch of negatives going against me. And I remember not feeling very good about myself. And, and then I had a flat nose. And people started teasing me. And they started calling me flat nose. And there was this show called HR Puffin Stuff. You gotta look up who he is. I'm not even gonna post it. I want you to go look up HR Puffin Stuff. I remember the song. It used to go, HR Puffin Stuff. What you gonna do when things get rough? And my nose looked like HR Puffin Stuff's nose because he was a puppet and he had just a image of a nose on his face. He didn't actually have a nose. And that's why they used to tease me and call me HR Puffin Stuff. Man, sometimes you gotta laugh to stop from crying. Yeah, then I had the weirdest name for a black kid. Chester. Oh, they used to think me. Chesterfield. Uh, then Hustler came out with this porno character named Chester the Molester. Oh my God. I got teased so much. I hated that name. My father's name was Chester. And I hated that name. Oh, I still hate that name. I don't like to be called Chester. And growing up, you could call me anything but that. Um, I have matured a little bit today, and I never legally changed my name because my father got to name me after him. My father's name was Chester, and my mother, his grandmother, his mother, my grandmother, named him after Chester Arthur, a president, because she wanted to make him feel good about himself. And so she named him after a president, hoping that throughout life he will grow up feeling better about himself. Um, he wore the name well. My father was a Chester. I'm not a Chester. Um, I hate the name, but I never changed my name because my father knew I didn't like it. And I had mentioned to him about changing my name. And he begged me on his deathbed not to because he wanted someone to carry his name. And that's the only reason why I didn't change it legally. But I don't like being called Chester. I hate that name. allow people to call me Chester at work because it's what's on paper, and I don't want to confuse them. But most people know me as Jonathan, which is my son's name, and I mentioned that in one of my other videos. But I'm getting off track. Let me get back on track. So I had all these negatives going on in my life, and then I was struggling with school because I didn't have that interaction with other kids growing up. Uh, I had very poor social skills, and then reading and learning was very difficult for me. But I knew how to fix things. Um, I knew I wasn't stupid. It was I had no way to prove it. Uh, anyway, I remember my first drink. I was about 8 years old, and my mother had a party in the house, and everybody was dancing and having fun. And I noticed that every time they pick up one of those cups and they drank that stuff, whatever it was, they were able to loosen up and be happy. And so I wanted to know what was in the cup. So I walked up, somebody set their drink down, and I picked it up, and I slid off with it, and I drank it. Man, that night, I danced. I was the life of the party. I was in the middle of the floor. Everybody was taking pictures. They were like, oh, look at him. He can dance. You go, boy. And it was the first time my family recognized me as having any kind of talent or any kind of value. Um, and man, I loved that feeling. Finally, I felt like people loved me and people cared about me. And so I started watching my mother hide the bottle, and I would go steal some. I put water back in there, and I would keep me a supply. So I started drinking at the age of 8 years old. And whenever things got rough or things got bad, I would go sneak me a drink, and everything was beautiful. Um, Me and my father began to argue because I started to feel like a man. My father used to hit my mother. I didn't like it. And one day my father hit my mother, and I told him, you hit her one more time and see what happened. And it was the first time I felt strong. It was the first time I felt like I had courage. I had had a couple of drinks. Um, and then me and my father started to clash a lot. And so one day my father said, oh, well, you keep mentioning that you're a man. He said, if you think you're a man, let the doorknob hit you in the ass. And so I did. I ran away. I was about 10 years old when I first ran away. Um, I didn't know where I was going. I just got on the train and I rode the trains. Um, I eventually came back home. Me and my father had another fight another day, and I ran away again. But this time was different. I stayed away longer. At that time, I found out about this place called Under 21, which was a Catholic ran place for wayward kids. And so I went there. One day I was walking and it all of a sudden the sky opened up and it started pouring rain. And when it started pouring rain, I got soaked wet. I went to under 21, but by then I had my shoes on so long, my feet got rotten and smelled really bad. And they gave me some beat up sneakers and some pants. And the pastor had a group of male boys that he liked and favored those kids. And he made me one of those kids. And one day he called me into the office. And this is going to get really personal. I'm going to talk about something that some people might not like, but I'm going to tell the story anyway. I cannot help anybody with my story if I'm not honest. I hope you don't look at me any differently after I tell you this, but I have to talk about it. I was in counseling for it, and my counselor, the guy I spoke to, his name is Sean Reeves, very good counselor from Tom's River. Look him up if you need to talk to somebody. He's one of the best I've ever met. He didn't demonize me. He listened to me, and I began to trust him, and he allowed me to open up and talk about some things that I had never talked to anybody about. The reason why I didn't talk to anybody about this is I didn't want people to think I was gay. Um, people today, they talk about homosexuality and freedom, but what a lot of people fail to talk about, because it's mostly males that this happens to, is they don't think that we should have a voice, because as a man you're supposed to be strong and you're supposed to hold these things in and deal with them. I'm not gonna do that in this video because I can't help nobody if I'm not being honest. It's the reason why I hate homosexual men, because they ruined my life. And that's the truth, plain and simple. This pastor one day invited me into the room. And when I went in the room, he told me to go do something on the desk, move some papers around. And when I went to do that, he came behind me and acted like he was reaching for something, but he was leaning against me. And I was like, what is he doing? Like, at first I didn't know if he was trying to comfort me, if he was trying to make me feel close to him by touching me. But when I felt his erection on my back, I backed up and I hit him with my elbow.